Speak up louder. Okay, welcome. So our first Lenten talk is with Father Barber, and it's going to be on the Ignatian Examen. And there are cards at your seat. We also have extra ones. So if you want to bring some home, one for the car, some for your friends, students, we have plenty of extra cards. We also have plenty of food. So please feel free to go back for seconds, thirds, fourths, whatever pleases you. This is the first in a series of 3 talks that will be held in English. We have another one next week with Father McManus, and then we have Bishop Barber on April 6th. So those are the English talks. For the Spanish community, we also have talks on the 23rd and the 30th, and that'll be at 2:30, and those talks will be in Spanish. And for the Vietnamese community, we have talks on Friday evenings after Mass, and that'll be in Vietnamese. But without further ado, here is Father Barber.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. I'm going to start with a question, and normally when you hear someone speaking or giving a talk like this, there's a period at the end where you raise your hand and ask questions. But I'm going to start with a question. I want you to hold on to the question for our brief time here together, because we're going to revisit that question. Here it goes. How's your day going? Hold on to that. It's at the heart of what the Ignatian Examen is all about. And when we use the word Ignatian, we are referring to one of the important saints, but more than that, one of the important men in the 16th century, Ignatius of Loyola, Íñigo de Loyola. He came from a family in the Basque region, so he was not a Spaniard, he was a Basque. And he grew up in court in the late 1490s into the early 16th century. He was wealthy. He came from a powerful family in Loyola, the kind of family who lived in a castle. And halfway through his life, he was a soldier. And the Kingdom of Navarre, Kingdom of Spain, was fighting against the French. Ignatius fancied himself a wonderful kind of Charlton Heston-like soldier of fortune. And how do we know that? Because he had a large collection of different costumes and clothing he wore for different occasions when he went to battle. He liked to look good, and if you pardon the expression, he liked to look good for the ladies. He was a dandy, but he had one handicap in his life. I'm much taller than Ignatius Loyola. I'm perfectly tall just as I am. I don't need to get any taller. But in those days, in the court, ladies of court would walk right by him. And he didn't know what to do about that. So he went to battle and thought, I'm going to be a great, great hero. Well, wouldn't you know, when God hears our plans, God says, hold on, young man, I've got a plan for you. And he was in a town called Pamplona with the running of the bulls. Has anyone gone to Pamplona and ran the bulls? Well, I watched from an apartment, and I watched the bulls run by. And a cannonball hit Ignatius on the knee and shattered his leg. Ouch. It was a big ouch. And in the 1520s, 1530s, that means a long convalescence. And while he was convalescing, a very wise priest gave him 2 books, The Lives of the Saints and a book by a man named Thomas à Kempis, the Teachings of Christ, Following Teachings of Christ. He had 2 books while he was laid up for about 6 months with his leg in a splint. So what else do you do when you're laid up with your leg in a splint? You think about your life. You think about where you are in your life. And Ignatius realized this gift of these months in the hospital are for me to examine where I have been, where I am now, and where I am going. Are you still holding on to that question I asked you? Don't let it evaporate. And slowly he began to realize this thing of chasing the ladies at court and being a soldier, this is not working out well for me. Because as an outcome of the injury, Ignatius walked like this. Now you're at a double disadvantage. You're short and you limp, and you're unlikely to resume your career. So what did he do? He decided, I will ask God, what is it you have in store for me? And to the best of my ability, I will try to fulfill that. So instead of being a renowned soldier for a nation state, he said, instead, I will be a soldier for God. So now I can at least travel. And he went in search of fame and fortune as a soldier of God. And what was happening in those years, in the beginning of the 16th century, especially in the Holy Land, were the Crusades. And there was fighting, imagine that, there was fighting in the Holy Land, and people were at fisticuffs. And he said, I will go to Jerusalem, and I will fight on the side of the church against what they called the Saracens, the heathens, Muslims. So it was a vicious time in the Holy Land. It was not an easy place to have a vacation and go to see what we know of the Holy Land now. And again, he gets to the Holy Land, and it didn't work out for him because the Holy Land was controlled by the Franciscans. And they said, you're not a Franciscan. We're not sure what you want to do here, but I think you should maybe go back to Rome and talk to the Holy Father and ask him what it is the Holy Father wants you to do. And he did. And he did. This is leading to Ignatius more and more and more answering those questions. Where has my life been? Where is it now? And where is it going? And we see in Ignatius in those years a kind of freedom which is at the heart of Ignatian spirituality in his own soul to say, whatever it is God tells me to do, I want the freedom to do it. It's not that I want the career, I want the freedom to follow the career that God has in store for me. So long story short, Ignatius winds up in Rome. He asks the Pope Paul III, what is it you want me to do? I'll give you the rest of my life. And Pope Paul III says, I give you the permission to found the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. I give you that authority and the support you need to do that. And by this time in Ignatius's life, other men were following him, and he was trying to gather a group of like-minded men to be miles sacerdotes, to be priests and soldiers at the disposition of the Holy Father. And what were they doing? They were trying to counter the forms or the thinking of the Reformation. So this was the time of the Counter-Reformation. And Ignatius said to the Holy Father, it seems to me like we need to refocus the faith and get people more articulate and educated about the true faith, because people like Martin Luther, John Calvin, it's all kind of kittywampus. But we want to get it back to the original root of the gospel, to have the freedom to follow Christ. How does he do that? What is he going to do? He sits down and he writes a textbook, kind of a textbook of recipes, spiritual recipes. And these recipes became codified in a book called the Ejercicios Spirituales, the spiritual exercises. The spiritual exercises. Has anyone ever heard of those? Yes, you have, of course. We're making a spiritual exercise right this minute. So I'm going to ask a quick pop quiz question on my good friend, Master John Matley. John, quick question. If you go to a library and you see people in the library, are they doing physical exercise, spiritual exercise, or intellectual exercise?
Intellectual exercise.
Perfect. Gold star, ice cream at Fenton's later on. So we know that there's an intellectual exercise component of life. So I've given the answer away. If you go down to Gold's Gym, are people doing spiritual exercise, intellectual, or physical? It's physical. But Ignatius, by now, had realized people like to exercise. People are habitual. People like to go to a library, open a book. People went to libraries then and opened books. People tend to like to take a walk around the lake at 4 p.m. People are creatures of habit. And he's writing in these exercises, what is it I can seize on that's already in your human nature, that you like good habits, that would lead you to God? He wasn't saying, read the Gospel of St. John over and over again. He wasn't saying, give all your possessions to the poor and live on the sidewalk and be a beggar. He was saying, what is it that you are in the habit of doing that leads you toward God or leads you away from God? That is at the heart of the spiritual exercises. You ask yourself, you own yourself. When I am in the habit of doing this, I'm walking toward God. When I get in the habit of doing that, I tend to be walking away from God. And I'm wondering if that doesn't help answer the first question. How's your day going? And the examine is the technique he formulated to ask yourself, how's my day going? Is it leading me to God or leading me away from God? Because by the middle of the day, most people have engaged in habits that are familiar to them, either in a good way or a negative way. Back to John Matley. Quick question, John. Are you in the habit of going to school in the morning? Is that a good thing? Very good thing. Are there habits that when we grow up, we tend to think, I've got to get out of the habit of doing that? Maybe. Every time I'm on Grand Avenue and Telegraph, I'm in the habit of finding people that are just not obeying the driving laws like I am. And it drives me crazy. And then there's those darn bike things that you have to drive around. And my blood pressure goes up. Not a godly moment there. But it's a habit. And Ignatius developed this examine. And he says this is a really good way, not the only way, Not the only way, but this is a way to answer the question, how's your day going? And get in the habit of doing that. And when I was a baby Jesuit, we were given this exercise. It's a spiritual exercise. And we were instructed, do this at noon, and do this when you're about to retire for the day, when the day has run its course. Do it twice a day. And I primed my dear friend Sonia, and I'm going to ask Sonia, having heard all of this, Sonia, you all know Sonia Simrel, our dear friend from St. Leo the Great School and points elsewhere. Sonia, real loud so everyone can hear. How's your day going?
It's going great, and I have to say that after reading the examen, I want to definitely focus on principle one. I want to look at my day with God's eyes, not merely my own.
Great. What's an example of why you think, what is it? It's 1 o'clock. Your day has included, I'm walking toward God. This is really life-giving. This is a life-giving part of my day. Can you illustrate that with an example?
Well, I woke up this morning, I came to Mass, communion, and I'm here.
Very good. Now, I'm going to put her out on Front Street, like they say in our culture. Sonia, real follow-up, because most people are in the habit of having not so good parts of their day and good days. Anything, you're free to ignore the question. Anything today that's a little bit, that was a few inches away from God.
Yeah, when I was driving here.
Imagine my surprise. Do you want to illustrate? Can you at least describe what took place?
This guy ran in front of me, and I said some words I shouldn't have said.
Saint Ignatius is dancing in heaven at hearing Sonia Simrel engage in El Examen Diario. Sonia, thank you. She just completed part of a spiritual exercise. And I notice, because I am a dear friend of Sonia's, she illustrated how is your day going with 2 habits, right? Habit of waking up on a Sunday and going to Mass. She tends to be in the habit of doing that, to be fostered, to be nurtured, to be in touch with the Lord and His community. And then, on occasion, maybe every single afternoon, that habit of getting cut off and finding words that you don't want to teach your students is again that habit. And Ignatius, as he's writing these down, says, you know what? It doesn't even matter if you're Christian or Buddhist or Muslim or Chinese or wherever you're from, wherever you grew up, young, old, you can do this. You can do this. And it answers a very simple question. Is my day ordered toward God? And if it is, what are those things I want to get better at fostering the habit? And if not, what steps can I take to decrease the chance that that's going to happen again that makes me walk away from God? Very simple. And your answer is your answer. He didn't write, it has to look like this. You have to be more, see where it says you have to be more like Mother Teresa? You have to be like her. And if anyone says that to you, they're not following an Ignatian examen. I think his genius is seizing on you where you have been in your life, where you are in your life, and where your life is going. And if you can, ask God, just give me a little light here, because I really have an appetite for getting up and going to school, and I want to decrease my appetite for the language I use, because it's not a pretty moment. Right? So, let's take a minute, and we're going to do this together. This is homework that we're doing now. This is not homework. This is Cathedral Parish Center with lunch work. Okay, as best you can, and keep eating, by the way, we're going to do an Ignatian examen. And if you choose to get in the habit, it maybe takes 10 minutes. It maybe takes 10 minutes. And I tend to try and do it right after lunch, if I can squirrel away the time. So, first thing we do, go to step number 1, pide la luz a Dios, or ask God for light. So we're going to start the examen together, and in your own way, in your own heart, in your own mind, just ask God, just shed some light on me right now. Just shed some light. The light on the first part of my day. Good. And now step number 2, in your own heart, in your own words, because you are making your examen, just say thank you to God for the life he's giving you right this minute. Thank you for life. Thank you for I'm living. I'm alive. I'm here at the cathedral with my brothers and sisters. I'm just alive. Thank you for my life. Now, this may take a few minutes. From, say, the last 24 hours, it's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock Saturday to 1 o'clock Sunday. Just roll the video back. Hit the TiVo button on your day, 24 hours, and just take a look. There's no pop quiz, there's no right or wrong. In your own mind, with the light God has given you, just run the video of the last 24 hours. And in the last 24 hours, what can you identify as a habit or something that happened that you felt led you or was leading you to God. Very simple. Maybe a moment you'd like to get in the habit of repeating. It could be as simple as a delicious chocolate chip cookie. It could be as simple as getting some fresh air on a rainy afternoon. Simple. And then in the last 24 hours, did you make a decision? Did you say something? Did you avoid something? And now that you look about that, now that you review it, it led me a bit away from God. This was not a good habit. Simple. Maybe a moment or a reaction. You want to get out of that habit, but you need God to enlighten it first and help you make a correction. And number 4, here on the card, if you can identify something that you want to get out of the habit of doing within the last 24 hours, you make note of it. Because you want to eliminate that. Because it's walking away, not walking toward. The folks at Loyola Press call it a shortcoming, but sometimes it might be a little more troublesome. Well, that phone call really hurt. Click. But the good things, if one chocolate chip cookie was good, have another half with ice cream. That kind of thing. And I want to be nourished by God more. We were only talking 24 hours. And then when you are ready, not when you're looking at the time, when you are ready, the Jesuit way or my way at number 5, ask God to shed light on tomorrow, the next 24 hours. And it's all, as you know, in the context that God has given you the last 24 hours, and he's going to give you another 24 hours. But they're yours. They belong to you to live them the best way you can, walking toward God. And Ignatius would say, make sure this examine exercise comes to an end. Good prayer has a beginning, middle, and end. That's why the priest says, the Mass is over now. Go in peace. We're all done here, okay? We had the beginning in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We prayed the Mass together, and now it's over. We move on with our day. The same habit with the Ignatian Examen. You start it, you go through it, and bring it to an end. I tend to want to end it. I say a quick Our Father, make the sign of the cross, and I'm done. Then I go back and I read emails and pick up voicemails and but I did the Examen. I did the Examen. This is distinctive, and it's just a little bit back about Ignatius. Different leaders in the church that have sprung up over centuries. Think of our dear friends, the Dominicans. Dominic wasn't like this. His genius was forming Dominicans to live and pray together and then go out and preach. Father Thomas Aquinas, God sent him to us to preach and be a shepherd. Thank you, Jesus. Amen for that. Think of Mother Teresa. Out of kind of nowhere, she just sprang up because people in Calcutta needed her and her sisters and brothers to tend for the lepers and the people living in sidewalks in Calcutta. So, okay, we'll do that. What at the heart of Ignatius and his spirit is you realize what God has in store for you if you go where God sends you. So every Jesuit, and go to my office and I can show you, I have a letter of mission. And the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, handed me a letter, the provincial, and he said, Stephen, I'm sending you to the Cathedral of Christ the Light as the parochial vicar. That is what a Jesuit does. He's all about that. I go where I was sent. Franciscans live together, tend to be poor, serve the hungry, wear brown robes. I don't do that. I know I am living my Jesuit vocation when I'm in the car driving over to St. Patrick in West Oakland, and I realize, where am I going? And I hear a voice, maybe it's him, saying, you're going where you're sent. That's what you signed up for. That's what you asked from God. So just go. That's how you know a Jesuit is a Jesuit. It's not what he does. It's that he's going where he was sent. And I'll tell you a story. It's completely off the record, by the way. When our bishop picked up the phone years ago, and it was a phone call he didn't know was coming, and he had been invited by Pope Francis, a Jesuit, to become the ordinary of Oakland and to be a bishop. He asked the provincial, is this the will of the society? I mean, am I being sent mission to do this? And the provincial said, not only is it my will, but the Father General in Rome, they already worked out a deal. You're going. That's totally off the record. But that man, being a good Jesuit, said, okay, it must be God's will to send me to the people of Oakland to be a bishop and to be their bishop. Our bishop. Yeah, that's right. And that's how he knows he's doing God's will. And you better believe that was one long examen that day. But again, I will underline, it's not that you are called to live according to a rule of some religious order or a way of proceeding with someone else. The genius, the divine genius, I think, at the heart of Ignatian life is that it's yours. When I asked Sonia and I asked little Michael, what part of your examen? No one else answered that. They did. Sonia did. And that's what makes it distinctively Ignatian. So we offer this as a little wrap-up with one caveat from Ignatius, and this is classical Latin. If this is helpful, use it. If it's not helpful, don't use it. It's the principle of tantum quantum. As much as this is helpful, then good, then use it. If it's not helpful, then send it aside.